be back. Scary thought. Recorded. I'm recorded. And thank you, Choa Sensei, for inviting me back. It's a pleasure to come back to San Diego. Um, the subject of late, I'll kind of give you a little bit of background on what brought me to this subject and what I tried to do with it, and I'm not sure it succeeded. So maybe you guys can give me feedback after it's over. I retired a little bit over a year ago, so I've had time to do things that I've always wanted to do, and so I started going to this open mic because I love doing music, and I write poetry and reciting poetry. So I decided I would write a poem about no self and see how this went over with non-Buddhists and really kids who were, trying to figure out themselves, trying to figure out how they're going to express themselves. So these are all, 20-something kids. So I thought, okay, let me try this with them and see how fast this bombs. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I'd read this poem to you. So this poem is a little bit performative, a little bit dramatic, a little bit, not something we usually do in Zen. Usually we're kind of calm and quiet and subtle, but this is not that. So this is called Break the Glass, and it's gone through a few revisions based on people's feedback, so feel free. Be critical. So it's all helpful. So, hey, you, whomever you are or think you are, you can only create something new when you become no thing. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You can only become no thing when you get rid of who you think you are. Yo, you can only get rid of you by taking every single idea you have of yourself, gathering them all of them, not just the ones you like or don't like, leave nothing out. All ideas you have of yourself, and let's not forget the ones you didn't know you had. Take them all, dissect, deconstruct, destroy them, all of them. If complete annihilation doesn't work, then you must sabotage any ability of those ideas you have of ever functioning again. This will be a lot of work. This will take some time. Because you have contrived and wrapped yourself in layer upon layer of your made-up stories. Not that these stories are good or bad, but they've served their purpose. In the 5 minutes they may have been true. They're all from your past. And now they're just a little dated and a little tight, you having put on a lot of change recently. Just saying, and that misses the point. You are a creator. Those old ideas ain't smelling so fresh. As a matter of fact, it's a little ripe up in here. 13th century Rumi said it best. Break the glass and fall toward the glass blower's breath. That is what you need to do. Break all that fine crystal, all those coffee mugs with yesterday's self in them, and and keep breaking, keep falling until you have no more ideas about who and what you are. Keep falling until the only thing you have left is the breath. After you've done all that, then you need to recognize that even that breath is not you and is not yours. It is the breath of your ancestors, your enemies, your friends. It is the same breath breathed for hundreds, thousands, millions of years. It is the breath that will be breathed by your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren for unlimited generations to come. But in this moment, in this infinite now, this breath, this infinitely new breath, is in your lungs. How will you use it? If you are trapped inside some contrived idea of yourself, all that old air is trapped right there with you, stuck on repeat. But if you do the work, if you break all the glass and fall face first, eyes open, you will find a new breath. There is no telling because that story has yet to be written. There is no limit because we keep discovering more and more universe. No more restrictions on what you can use that breath to do. That new, unidentified, unlimited, eternally new self is your natural true self. That couldn't get through all that recirculated air you've been breathing. Whoa, hold up. Wait, there's more. You're not done. As soon as you turn that fresh new breath into some idea that you want to hold on to, you need to break that too. It took me a while to get used to those snaps. In overtime, it's like, why are they snapping? That's just because I'm old. I don't used to do that. So this no self is one of there are several sets of three pillars, but I'll just call it one of the three pillars of Zen. Impermanence and no self, and what there's so many others that qualify in those threes that we keep using. But the no self is kind of this tricky one. But I mean, there's a lot of science behind this because we are constantly changing, constantly becoming new. Our cells are dying and regrowing, and every 7 years or so, we're entirely new people. So why do we keep trying to recreate our old selves over and over again? Mostly it's out of habit, mostly out of just it's easier just to try to be something that we've always been rather than realize that we've got open these open possibilities, this blank slate on which to create this new self. This is my teacher's book, The Way of Zen, written by Tenshin Yoshi and one of his students, David Scott. On page 43 of this, he talks about the no self, and he says, he's actually quoting Yasutani Roshi here. He says, "Be like a blank piece of paper on which anything can be written. This is the man of no rank, this no self, being so you can truly function freely, entering into any circumstances without the baggage of concepts or prejudice, unhindered by old habits and impulse." So how does this old self show up? And it shows up in both good and bad ways. I mean, certainly uh, I rely on my old habits to get me out of bed and do the things I'm supposed to do before I walk out the door. If I walk out the door without putting on my clothes, that might be a problem. So certainly these habits we have of brushing our teeth and breakfast, doing those things and putting on the appropriate attire to do what we need to do, those are some of the things that that we keep recreating for ourselves because they work, they function well. Um, However, some of those habits include, drinking copious amounts of things that are not good for you before you leave the house. Then, maybe that's something you need to pay attention to, and try to break that habit because habits are ingrained in this recreation of this old self. These addictions that we have, and how we identify, because we don't, at least in our culture, and I don't think it's true in all cultures, we claim that we are what we do instead of we're just me doing something. Instead of saying I I I I play the piano, I say I am a musician. I am a human resources professional, which is what the job I retired from. We have these you know these identifiers that kind of box us in and make it easy for people to understand where we came from and who we are. But are those true? I'm still in the habit of saying I am an HR professional, and I retired over a year ago, and I've had trouble re-identifying myself. Who am I without my job? Because we think that's where we are. Um, and that really isn't true. That changes. That is what we do, but it's not who we really are, who our true self really is. And getting to that requires a lot of work because our culture hands us all these identifiers. You're a son, you're a daughter, you're a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, all those boxes that we get from our families and from our culture, we kind of hide it. And then we've got those implicit biases that our culture also gives us, and those operate on this unconscious level that, and they operate before we're conscious of them. So how do we address that? And really the only way to do that is really recognize we have them and to not let ourselves act out on what we know our implicit biases are. Not an easy thing to do. It's a lot of work. Um, but certainly, I think worth the effort, because if we free our, if we're able to get, work toward free, I don't think you're, at least in my experience, I haven't been able to get completely free of them, but it's an ongoing, it's a daily process. I have to keep working on, letting go of the self. But when I can let go of it, I'm completely free. When I'm sitting in front of somebody and listening to what they have to say, I can just be present with who that person is, instead of like, oh, I've got the answer. I know what you're supposed to do. And it's certainly my job. That's what people came to. Obviously, HR professional. I was expected to answer things in a certain way, but this way I can just be present with what the other person needs and who they are and what they're presenting to me. And though when I was able to apply this in my job, what I discovered was a lot of times people had the answers themselves. I would just listen to them and let them talk, and usually they talk themselves out of their own problem. And they'd be all grateful to me. It's like, oh, thank you so much. I'm going, I didn't do nothing. Just sat here and listened to you, and you answered your own question. And a lot of times that's what happens. Those of you who've done some sitting for a long time recognize that's what happens. Things come up, and if we let things fall away, let things open up, the responses and what we really need comes to the fore, and we get to use that. So it's a very effective way to do things. It also is one of the more effective things of solving problems. Einstein wrote, "We can't solve problems using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." So the only way to really bring a new mind to bear is to get rid of the old mind, get rid of all those old identifiers, because obviously those things are what caused the problem in the first place. Trying to repeat those things again just perpetuates the problem. So if you want a new solution to an old problem, you got to be a new self and do the work to actually undo all of the attachments we have to our old identifiers and old ways of thinking. Sorry, I don't have an easy solution for this, but it takes some work to actually get to know what those are. And I'm a great big fan of Zazen. I don't think it cures everything, but it does a lot to really bring yourself into focus and really get to know who you are. And my favorite Zen master, Dogen, to study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And I think that naturally happens as a process of practice. It's not magic, it's just, you get to look at how you're being, and after a while, you're like, you know, that's just not working so well. There's got to be a different way to do this. And you have that opening to actually try something new, try something that you haven't done before. And built into our practice, built into the Four Noble Truths, is the problem-solving template. Life is suffering. Substitute problem for, life is this thing going wrong. And there is a reason that this thing is always going wrong. There's an end to this thing going wrong. And here are the steps I need to take to make sure this thing isn't going wrong anymore, and I can now put it on the right path, and the right path is that path which is aligned better with reality, just as it is. And being in reality, just as it is the only thing that's available to you as a part of this sitting. This sitting makes you completely present, and it's just a natural process. If you let go, if you just breathe, just focus on the breath. And I like what Rumi said, fall toward the breath. It's intentional. You intentionally pay attention to your breath, count the breath, follow the breath, be the breath. All the other stuff just follows. It's a very natural process. Getting to your true self is not something you have to find. It's already there. You just have to get out of the way of everything that is layered, on that, above that, over that, in order to actually recognize that true self. So the process itself is really self-healing in that way, meaning it's self-perpetuating. I don't think it requires, there's not a lot of magical thinking, magical work that goes on with it. It feels magical because it feels refreshingly new. For a while, it's temporary, you have to come back and do the work to do that over and over again, because that's where people get stuck. They'll have these openings when they're doing zazen. It's like just an amazing connection with all of reality. All of a sudden, we've all been there, and you're like, oh man, that's it. Yeah, I'm enlightened. I'm going to hang on to that forever. That's just that. And you go and, of course, you tell the teacher that, and they say, good job, go back and sit. And that's that's what you have to do, because even the greatest masters recognize that those moments of enlightenment, they are temporary, just like everything else. It is impermanent, and so we have to go back and renew. And the next time we come to it, it will be different, as it always is, because we are always different. We are always new. You cannot stick the same hand in the same river twice, because we are in this constant state of flow, this constant state of motion, this constant state of growing and becoming, and we are constantly new. And taking advantage of that newness, that's the treasure. That's the treasure of this practice. That's the reward, if you will. Um, if you if you need something to entice you to sit, use that. I get to be new every time I sit. So it's like sometimes it's hard. I to talk myself out of bed. I'm like, I want to be new. The old one was working just fine. you know, it's too hard. It's too much work. Why can't I just repeat what I did yesterday? Um, Unfortunately, it's not yesterday anymore. So everything else has moved on, and it's our job to move on with it, and also create it. Bring your new self, your new way of being, your new dreams, your new hopes, um, incrementally. It's little by little, as Maizumi Roshi used to. I guess one of the first terms he learned in Spanish was poco a poco, so little by little. So he often said that as one of his favorite sayings. So little by little, just this constant, way of practicing every day, just for a few minutes. Doesn't take long. 5 minutes every day, and strangely, what happens, at least for me, I will speak for myself. Um, I just kept wanting more and more of it. And so 5 minutes turned into 15, into 20, into 30, into an all-day Zazen Kai, and then 7-day retreats that I just love doing. It's hard to believe. I tell my friends, yeah, going to a 7-day retreat, we're not going to talk for 7 days. And they're like, what? No talking for 7 days? How do you do that? Oh, trust me, it is glorious. Once you do it. It takes me 3 or 4 days to kind of calm down and for the energy to kind of settle. But once it settles, it's like, yeah, this is that bliss and repose. Everything hurts. Those of you who've sat sessions for 7 days, it's physically difficult, physically challenging, but definitely mentally and spiritually rewarding at the end of all that. All right, enough said. What do you think about your no self? Feedback about the poem, we'll need to listen to that. Anything you can do would help. Questions, statements, comments, please.